Hello there, sports fans. My name is Bryce, and welcome to another football edition of Sports Dreamer Podcast. And before we begin our starts and sets for week 3, we'll review our hits and misses for week 2. We'll start with our hits for running back position for week 2. Some of our hits includes Chris Carson of Seattle Seahawks, Jonathan Taylor of Indianapolis Colts, and the running back combo of Cleveland Browns, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Some of our running back misses for week 2 includes the name of James Robinson, Jerick McKinnon, and Naheem Heidensick. And for our hits for the wide receiver position, some of our hits includes Calvin Ridley of Atlanta Falcons, DK Metcalf, and Scary Terry McLaurin. Some of our misses for week 2 for the wide receiver position includes the big names of Devante Adams, Adam Thielen, and Juju Smith-Schuster. And here are your starts and sets for week 3. We'll start with the Thursday night football between Miami Dolphins and Jacksonville Jaguars. For Miami, I'll only start wide receiver Devante Parker and I'll sit running backs Myles Gaskin and Jordan Howard. Jaguars are relatively stingy against running backs this season. For the Jaguars, I'll start running backs James Robinson and Chris Thompson, and I'll also start wide receiver Keenan Cole. And for your sit, I'll sit wide receiver DJ Chark as he is dealing with a chest injury and it's a game time decision for this match. And you can't afford a goose egg for the start of your week 3. Next up is the Chicago Bears versus Atlanta Falcons. For your Bears, I should say start everyone against the Falcons, but I'm not gonna do that. I'll say start wide receiver Allen Robinson and wide receiver Anthony Miller, and also start running back David Montgomery. But I'll keep running back Tariq Cohen on the bench. For the Falcons, I'll start wide receiver superstar Julio Jones and wide receiver Calvin Ridley, and I'll also start wide receiver Russell Gage here. Also, I'll start running back Todd Gurley. This Atlanta defense can't stop anyone right now. Next game is the LA Rams versus Buffalo Bills. For your Rams, I'll start wide receiver Robert Woods and running back Darrell Henderson. Running backs Cam Akers and Malcolm Brown are dealing with injuries. And for your sit, I'll sit wide receiver Cooper Kupp. For the Bills, I'll start wide receiver Stephon Diggs and running back Devin Singletary. And I'll sit wide receiver John Brown and running back Zach Moss. Zach Moss is dealing with a toe injury, so I'll keep him on my bench. Next is Washington football team against Cleveland Browns. And for Washington, I'll start wide receiver Terry McLaurin and running back Antonio Gibson. And for your sit, I'll sit running back Peyton Barber. For Cleveland, even against a great front seven of Washington, I'll still start running backs Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Also, I'll start wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. But I'll keep wide receiver Jarvis Landry on the bench. Next is Tennessee Titans versus Minnesota Vikings. And for the Titans, I'll keep starting running back Derrick Henry, and I'll also start wide receiver Corey Davis, as we don't know if wide receiver AJ Brown will be available to play this week. But even if he plays, I'll keep him on my bench. For Minnesota, I'll start running back Dalvin Cook, and I'll start wide receiver Adam Thielen. Those are the only players I trust to play this week. Next is the Las Vegas Raiders versus New England Patriots. For Vegas, I'll only start running back Josh Jacobs, and I'll keep wide receiver Henry Ruggs on the bench until QB Derek Carr stops dinking and dunking to Darren Waller. For New England, I'll only start wide receiver Julian Edelman, and I'll bench running back Sonny Michel and wide receiver N'Keal Harry. If you have N'Keal Harry, be patient with him. His time will come. Next game is San Francisco 49ers against New York Giants. For the Niners, I'll start both running backs Jerick McKinnon and Jeff Wilson, and I'll bench whoever their wide receivers are. For the Giants, I'll start wide receiver Darius Slayton and running back Dion Lewis, but I'll put a hold on newly signed running back Devontae Freeman. Next is Cincinnati Bengals versus Philadelphia Eagles. And for the Bengals, I'll start wide receiver Tyler Boyd and running back Joe Mixon. I will still keep wide receiver AJ Green on the bench. And for the Eagles, I'll only start running back Miles Sanders. And even though wide receiver Jalen Reagor will not play this week, I'll still bench Deshaun Jackson. Next game is Houston Texans versus Pittsburgh Steelers. For your Texans, I'll start running back David Johnson based on pure volume, but I'll also start wide receiver Brandon Cooks, as wide receiver Will Fuller is dealing with a hamstring issue. But even if Fuller plays, I'll keep him on my bench. For the Steelers, I'll start running back James Conner and wide receivers Deontay Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster. And I'll keep wide receiver Chase Claypool and running back Benny Snell on the bench. Next is the New York Jets versus Indianapolis Colts. And for your Jets, who can I start? None. This team is terrible. For the Colts, I'll start running back Jonathan Taylor and wide receiver T.Y. Hilton. And I don't see Colts trailing in this game, so I'll sit running back Naheem Hines. Maybe Houdini shows up again? Who knows? Next game is Carolina Panthers versus LA Chargers. And for your Panthers, I'll start wide receivers DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. And I'll also start running back replacement for Christian McCaffrey, Mike Davis. And for your sit, I'll sit wide receiver Curtis Samuel. For the Chargers, I'll start running back Austin Eckler and wide receiver Keenan Allen. But I'll keep wide receiver Mike Williams and running back Joshua Kelly on the bench. Next game is Detroit Lions versus Arizona Cardinals. And for your Lions, I'll start wide receiver Kenny Galladay, and running back DeAndre Swift. And for your sit, I'll sit wide receiver Marvin Jones Jr., running backs Kerryon Johnson and Adrian Peterson. And for the Cardinals, I'll start running back Kenyon Drake and wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. But I'll keep future Hall of Famer Larry Fitzgerald on the bench. Next game is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Denver Broncos. And for the Bucks, I'll start wide receivers Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And also, I'll start running back Leonard Fournette. And for your sit, I'll sit running back Ronald Jones Jr. That fumble last week cost him his starting job. And for the Bronx, I'll only start running back Melvin Gordon, and I'll keep wide receiver Jerry Jeudy on the bench. We still need to see how well Jeff Driscoll plays this week as a QB. Next up is Dallas Cowboys versus Seattle Seahawks. For the Cowboys, I'll start running back Ezekiel Elliott and wide receiver CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. But I'll keep wide receiver Michael Gallup on the bench. For the Seahawks, I'll start wide receivers DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And also, I'll start running back Chris Carson. But I'll still keep benching Carlos Hyde. Next game is Green Bay Packers versus New Orleans Saints. For your Packers, I'll start wide receiver Devante Adams, but monitor his availability for this game as he was dealing with a hamstring issue last game. But also, I'll start running back Aaron Jones, who exploded last week. And for your sit, I'll sit FVS and Allen Lazard. For the Saints, I'll start running back Alvin Kamara, and with Michael Thomas possibly not playing this week, I'll trust Traquan Smith. And I'll keep Emmanuel Sanders on the bench, who dropped some passes last week. And for our game of the week is the Monday Night Football featuring Kansas City Chiefs and Baltimore Ravens. For Kansas, I'll start wide receiver Tyreek Hill and running back CEH. And for your sits, I'll sit Sammy Watkins. For Baltimore, I'll start Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, and running back Mark Ingram. But I'll keep running back J.K. Dobbins on the bench. This will be a high-scoring game as it features the two previous MVPs, Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. So there you have it, our starts and sits for week 3. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the like button and hit subscribe. We'll see you next time.